Hello friends, you're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought I'd end up wearing a paper crown again. The first time I worked at a Burger King, I was 17, just a broke kid trying to buy his first car. The second time, I was 26, broke again, but this time with overdue rent, a car payment, and a landlord who'd stopped smiling 3 months ago. It was late August 2019. I'd just been laid off from a warehouse job in Dayton, Ohio. The company called it downsizing, but really they just found cheaper workers. I spent 2 weeks filling out online applications, refreshing Indeed like it was a slot machine. No luck. My mom said, "Evan, honey, work's work. You can't be picky when you're broke." So yeah, I swallowed my pride and applied at the Burger King off Route 42, the one squeezed between a liquor store and a car wash. They called me 2 days later. The guy on the phone introduced himself as Mr. Rourke, assistant manager. Said I could come in the next morning for an interview. It was one of those humid Ohio mornings where the air feels like wet cloth. The parking lot was half empty, a flickering sign above the door. Burger King, open late. Inside it was quiet. Too quiet for a fast food joint. An older lady in a faded uniform was wiping tables, humming something off-key. From the back came a short man with neatly combed hair and a shirt tucked too tight. Mr. Rourke. He didn't smile much, just flipped through a folder and asked, "Evan Reeves?" "Yeah." "You've worked food before?" "Couple summers in high school," I said. "McDonald's, then a deli for a bit." He nodded, flipping another page. "Good enough. Follow the rules, show up on time, don't steal. And one more thing," he leaned forward a little. "Don't bother the manager." I blinked. "Okay? He doesn't like being disturbed. You deal with me for everything, understood?" "Yeah, sure." He smiled then, thin, stretched, like the word smile was new to him. "Welcome to Burger King." The first few shifts were brutal. The fryer burned my arms. The dishes never ended. And the dining room smelled permanently like ketchup and sweat. But the people made it bearable. There was Marcus, the grill guy, loud, always talking about his band that almost got signed once. Tina, who ran the morning shift and knew every shortcut in the kitchen. And Hannah, quiet, small, usually closing with me. She always wore chipped purple nail polish and kept her hair tied back with a rubber band. She'd been there 6 months, and one night after we clocked out, she said something that stuck with me. "You ever seen the manager?" I shook my head. "No." "Why?" She shrugged, mopping the last section of tile. "Because I've worked here half a year, and I haven't either. Rourke says he only comes in late, like after midnight. Why so late?" "Guess he likes the quiet," she said softly. The manager's office sat at the end of the back hallway, right across from the walk-in freezer. Metal door, no window, just a little plaque that said "Manager" in black letters. Every time I walked past, I felt something strange, like the air was thicker near it, heavier. Once I thought I heard something from inside. Not voices exactly, but a low hum, like machinery running deep underground. One night after close, I stayed late cleaning the fryer. Everyone else had clocked out. That's when I heard it. A soft click, like a door unlocking. I looked toward the hallway. The office door was still closed. Lights off, but then something scraped across the floor. Slow, heavy. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. The hallway light flickered once, and for a split second, I thought I saw a faint yellow glow under the door. Just a thin line, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then it went dark again. I told Marcus the next day. He laughed at first, but then his expression changed. "Hey, don't mess with that," he said, shaking his head. "You're new. You don't know. They say that room's off limits for a reason." "What reason?" "Guy before you, name was Aaron, said he heard noises from there too. Stayed late one night to check it out. Never came back. Rourke said he quit, but his car was still in the lot for a week, a month passed." I tried to ignore the weird vibes, but it got harder every week. The back hallway camera started glitching. Always the same one. The one pointed at the office door. One night, Hannah whispered, "Let's check the recording." We were closing up, Rourke had already left, and the store was silent except for the buzz of the fryers cooling down. She scrolled through the footage on the small black monitor. Hours of nothing until 2:46 a.m. That's when the office door opened. Someone stepped out. Tall, wearing a black uniform that didn't look like ours. Too dark. The shape moved wrong. Shoulders hunched, head tilted too far to one side. It dragged something behind it. A black trash bag. Heavy. We watched it drag across the floor, leaving faint streaks. The figure stopped near the mop sink, crouched down, started opening the bag. Then the camera fuzzed into static. When it came back, empty hallway. Hannah clutched my arm. "What was that?" I didn't answer. 2 days later, the whole store stank like rotting meat. We checked the freezer. Everything sealed and cold. The smell wasn't coming from there. It was coming from under the manager's door. Rourke brushed it off, said it was a plumbing issue, but I caught him standing there later that night, eyes half closed, sniffing like he liked it. When I asked, he jumped. Yeah, it's handled. Don't worry about it." The next day, Hannah didn't show up. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. Rourke said she quit suddenly. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. A week later, Rourke handed me a key card. "The manager wants to see you." "Why?" "Routine check-in. He likes to meet new staff eventually." He smiled too wide again. "Don't keep him waiting." I walked down the hallway. The air was heavier than ever. Warm, wet, like the ventilation didn't reach there. I knocked once. The door buzzed, unlocked. Inside was pitch black, except for the faint red glow of a monitor on the desk. "Hello?" I said. The smell hit me, metallic, like rust and spoiled meat. The monitor flickered, showing the store's security feeds. The dining room, the kitchen, the parking lot, all empty. Then the screen changed. It showed the manager's office. Live, me, standing there, and behind me, a shape moving in the dark. I spun around, nothing. Then the lights cut out. Something brushed my shoulder, cold, wet, and slick, a whisper near my ear. "You wanted to meet the manager." Rourke's voice. "Now you have." I woke up in the alley behind the restaurant, shirt soaked in something sticky, my name tag missing. The Burger King was dark, doors locked. When I came back the next morning, the windows were boarded up, a renovation notice stapled to the glass. No one ever saw Rourke again. Or Hannah. The company's report said the location closed due to electrical hazards. But every few months, someone posts online about seeing lights flicker inside the old building. Some say they still smell grease. Others say something metallic. And once, driving home past midnight, I saw the sign flash for a moment. Just long enough to read the words that shouldn't have been there anymore. Open late, and under it, a shadow in the doorway. Head tilted, waiting. Story 2. I never thought a minimum wage job could change the way I breathe. Even now, years later, the smell of frying oil makes my chest tighten. It's strange how something so ordinary, a hiss from the fryer, the pop of grease, can still pull me back to that summer in Ohio. The summer I met Evan Pierce. Back then, I was just 18. My name's Maya Reeves, fresh out of high school, anxious, and convinced life was finally about to begin. My mom called it my gap summer. I called it survival. I needed money before college started, so when I saw the now hiring sign outside the Burger King off Route 42, I went inside. It was mid-June, humid enough to make my t-shirt stick to my back. Inside, the air smelled like burnt buns and floor cleaner. A man behind the counter looked up from wiping a tray. "You here for an application?" he asked. He had dark brown hair, a day's worth of stubble, and a grin that felt just a little too practiced. "Yeah," I said, brushing my hair behind my ear. "I saw the sign outside." He nodded and called out, "Hey, Amy, someone for the front." Then he turned back to me. "I'm Evan," he said, offering, a hand still damp from sanitizer. "Assistant manager, night shifts mostly. You new around here?" "Kind of," I said, shaking his hand. "Just graduated. Starting college in August." "Nice," he said, his smile softening. Get the job now. Quit before finals. Smart move, Amy, the manager, hired me that afternoon. By the next day, I was wearing the red polo, visor, and a name tag that said Maya in blocky white letters. I worked evenings mostly, 5 to 10, running drive-through, cleaning tables, stocking condiments. Evan was always there, floating between the counter and the back kitchen like he owned the place. He was 26, I later learned, and had been there since high school. He knew everyone, regulars, truckers, even the teenagers who'd sneak in after football games. At first, he was just the friendly guy who teased everyone. "Reeves, your fries look sad today," he'd say. "Maybe they're tired of your jokes," I'd fire back. The first week I met him, he'd already nicknamed me College Girl. By July, we were talking between shifts, leaning against the soda machine when things slowed down. He'd tell me about his plans to open a food truck someday. I told him about my art major, about how my dad used to say I'd never make a living painting. "You ever think maybe you're too good for this town?" he asked once, wiping his hands on a towel. "Every day," I said. He smiled. "Then don't end up like me." Something about night shifts changes people. After midnight, the store wasn't just quiet, it was eerie. The hum of the freezers, the buzzing fluorescent lights, it all felt louder when there were only two of us. One night, around 12:45, the drive-thru was dead. Evan leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. "You want to see something creepy?" he asked. I raised an eyebrow. "That's not a great question at midnight." He laughed, unlocked his phone, and showed me a grainy security feed of the back alley. A figure, tall, thin, stood just at the edge of the dumpster light. "See that?" he whispered. "Probably some homeless guy," I said. "Maybe," he murmured, "but it happens a lot. Always around closing. Never comes closer." I shrugged it off, but from then on, I started glancing at the back door every time I passed. By late July, I'd grown comfortable there. Maybe too comfortable. Evan and I would text after shifts. Nothing serious. Memes, random work rants. But one Friday, he texted something different. "Even. Got a surprise for you after close. Stay a bit?" Me. "Depends. Surprise like free fries or get murdered in a walk-in freezer?" Evan. "LOL, maybe both. Trust me though, you'll like it." That Friday, the restaurant was empty by midnight. Rain drizzled against the windows, soft and steady. Amy had gone home early, and it was just the two of us closing. When the last order left the drive-thru, Evan locked the front door. "Hang around," he said. "I've got something to show you." I was tired but curious. "What is it?" He only grinned. "You'll see." He disappeared into the back for 10 minutes. I wiped down counters, refilled napkins, humming to myself. When he came back, the lights were dimmed. "Okay," he said softly. "Now come to the dining area." I turned and froze. The tables had been pushed aside. In the middle sat one clean booth, a candle flickering in an empty ketchup bottle, 2 paper placemats, neatly folded napkins, a plastic bag from the Italian restaurant next door. "What is this?" I asked, half smiling. "Dinner," he said. "Well, after shift dinner." "For you," I laughed, nervous. "You set up a date in a Burger King?" "Best I could do on short notice," he said, still smiling. "You've been killing it this month. Figured you deserve something nice." My stomach fluttered. It was weird, but kind of sweet. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." He poured cola into 2 plastic cups like it was fine wine. We ate pasta out of takeout boxes, joking about customers and burnt fries. I actually relaxed, until the lights flickered, just once, then again. Evan frowned. "Breaker's old. Happens sometimes." But when the lights steadied, I noticed something. The back door was cracked open. "You left the door unlocked?" I asked. He glanced back, shrugged. Maybe I didn't close it all the way. The air felt colder. Half an hour later, I felt fuzzy. My eyelids heavy, my mouth dry. I'd barely touched the soda, but my head started swimming. "You okay?" Evan asked. "Yeah," I said, though my voice sounded far away. "Just dizzy." He reached over, brushed my hand. "Probably low blood sugar. Eat more." But the pasta tasted metallic. My vision pulsed at the edges. "Evan," I said slowly, "did you put something in my drink?" His eyes flicked up, just for a second. And that second was all I needed to see the truth. He smiled, not warm this time, but calm, controlled. "Maya, relax," he said softly. "You're fine." I stood, my chair scraping the tile. "No, I'm not." That's when I heard it. Movement from the back hallway. The faint squeak of a shoe against the wet floor. "Who's back there?" I demanded. Evan didn't answer. I turned toward the kitchen and froze. Two men were standing by the door to the freezer. One bald, one wearing a greasy hoodie. Both staring at me. Panic ripped through me. "Evan, what the hell is this?" He raised his hands. "Maya, please, just calm down. You're gonna make it worse." I shoved past him, stumbling. My limbs were heavy, but adrenaline kicked in. One of the men moved forward. "Grab her," he said. I screamed. It wasn't a clean scream. It tore out of me, raw and loud. I bolted toward the front, my shoes slipping on the tile. Evan grabbed my wrist. "Don't!" he hissed. I swung the soda cup at his face. It hit his cheek, splashing dark cola across his shirt. He cursed and I ran. The front doors were locked. I slammed my hands against the glass, shouting, "Help!" But the highway outside was empty. Behind me, footsteps, my car keys. I fumbled in my pocket, hit the red button. The alarm exploded outside, blaring, echoing. The men froze. Evan shouted, "Turn it off!" But I screamed louder, "Help, please!" The alarm kept wailing, then faintly, sirens. Evan's face twisted. "Damn it," he growled. "Go! Now!" The two men bolted toward the back exit. Evan hesitated, looking at me, then followed. I collapsed near the counter, shaking, gasping, the world spinning. When the police lights flashed through the windows, I started sobbing. They found me barely conscious, bleeding from my lip, shaking so hard I couldn't hold the pen to sign my statement. The officers searched the area, but the men were gone. They caught Evan 2 days later at his cousin's trailer outside Dayton. Turns out he'd been working there under a fake name. His real one had a record: assault, drugs, even an old kidnapping charge that never stuck. The two men were cousins, both wanted in another county. They'd planned everything, used the restaurant's closing hours as cover. Detectives said I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. For months, I couldn't sleep without every noise sounding like footsteps. I moved dorms 3 times before I could handle being alone. Now I'm 28, married, a teacher in Columbus. My husband Daniel knows bits and pieces. Not the full story. Sometimes on late drives home, I pass that same Burger King off Route 42. It's still open. New sign, new paint, bright red letters that look too clean to be real. But the smell, that same thick, greasy scent. Every time I roll my window down and breathe slow, remind myself I'm safe. Remind myself that the past can't reach me anymore. And yet, sometimes, when I stop at a red light near the building, I swear I see something. A flicker of light inside, candlelight. And behind the glass, a silhouette leaning against the counter, visor shadowing his face. I blink and it's gone. But as I drive away, one memory always cuts through the quiet. The last thing he said that night, his voice low and almost tender as I fought to stay awake. "You look beautiful when you're scared." The words still echo sometimes when the air smells like oil and burnt bread. And I keep driving, faster until the lights fade behind me. Story 3, I never thought I'd end up working at a Burger King. Not after the life I had before everything fell apart. 2 years earlier, I was living in a glass apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. My dad was a financial consultant for an investment firm, and my mom sold designer furniture part-time, mostly for fun, not for money. I went to a private college in Boston, majoring in business because that's what everyone expected of me. Life was clean, scheduled, predictable, until the bottom dropped out. When Dad's firm collapsed during the 2008 crash, it wasn't just our money that vanished, it was our identity. One week, he was the guy wearing $1,000 suits and sipping bourbon at networking events. The next, he was sitting at our kitchen table at 2 a.m., staring at bills and muttering under his breath. Mom tried to keep up appearances for a while, the garden parties, the matching Christmas cards, but I could see the panic behind her smile. Then came the call. "Sweetheart," my mom said one morning, voice trembling, "we can't keep paying your tuition." You'll have to come home for a while." I remember sitting on the edge of my dorm bed, staring at my laptop, the cursor blinking over an unfinished paper. It felt like everything in my life, my friends, my plans, my future, had been yanked out from under me. 2 months later, we were in a 2-bedroom rental in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Dad was still between jobs. Mom worked at a local gift shop, and I was walking door to door with a crumpled resume and zero work experience. That's how I ended up at the Burger King off Highway 309, the one sandwiched between a car wash and an old motel that smelled like wet carpet. I'll never forget my first shift. The air inside was heavy with grease, and the fluorescent lights made everything look a little sickly. I walked in wearing a thrift store blouse and black slacks that didn't quite fit right. The manager, a tall guy with a permanent sunburn named Ron Jacobs, handed me a visor and said, "Welcome to hell, rookie." The crew didn't even look up when I introduced myself. "Name's Alyssa," I said softly. A girl with dyed blue hair and a tattoo of a snake on her neck snorted. "You talk like a news anchor," she said. "Where'd they find you?" I smiled awkwardly. "Boston." That earned a few looks, not friendly ones. The first few weeks were brutal. I was slow, clumsy, and terrified of messing up. I burned my wrist on the fryer twice, mixed up drive-through orders, and once dropped an entire tray of Whoppers on the floor. But gradually I got the hang of it. By the 3rd month I could take orders, handle the grill, and clean up in record time. I even started joking with the others. Blue-hair girl's name was Jess, and she eventually warmed up to me. Then there was Eddie, the night shift cook who smelled faintly of cigarettes and motor oil, and Ron, the manager who only smiled when corporate inspectors showed up. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And it felt good for once to earn something. It was late October, the kind of night where the air feels sharp and dry, like winter's testing the door. I was on closing shift with Ron, Jess, and Eddie. The dinner rush had ended around 10:30, and we were just finishing cleanup. The only sounds were the low hum of the fryers and a faint 80s song playing through the tinny ceiling speakers. At 11:17 p.m., the door chime jingled. I looked up and saw him, a man in his late 40s, tall but thin, wearing a faded army jacket and a cap pulled low. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes, they were strange, not tired, not angry, just empty. "Evening, sir," I said, trying to sound normal. "Can I take your order?" He stared at the menu for a long time, lips moving silently before finally saying, "2 double cheeseburgers." "Sure thing. Would you like to make that a combo?" He raised a hand to stop me. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Without the bun. No cheese, no bacon, and don't cook the patties." I blinked. "I'm sorry. You want them raw?" He smiled, not a big one, just a small, slow curl of his mouth that made my stomach turn. "You've heard of steak tartare, haven't you?" "Yeah, but this isn't..." Before I could finish, Ron walked over. "Everything all right here?" The man turned to him. "I'd like 2 raw patties." That's all. Ron frowned. "Can't do that, pal. Health code. We get shut down for that." That should have been the end of it. But the man reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick roll of cash. He peeled off several crisp $100 bills and placed them on the counter. "How much to make it happen?" he asked softly. The store went dead quiet. Even the soda machine seemed to stop bubbling. Ron stared at the money, then at the man. I saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. Finally, he said, "Alyssa, go stock the back room, yeah?" I hesitated. "Ron, now." I walked into the back, but I didn't go far. Through the small window near the prep station, I saw Ron open the fridge, grab 2 raw patties, and, after glancing up at the security camera, turn the grill on without placing anything on it. He wrapped the raw meat in paper, bagged it, and handed it across the counter. The man gave a small nod, picked up his bag, and walked out. Ron disappeared into the back office for a few minutes, then came out and pressed something into my hand. 4 folded $100 bills. "Forget it," he said quietly. "You didn't see anything." I told myself to leave it alone, but I couldn't. When I glanced out the side window, I saw the man's car, an old silver sedan, still parked near the dumpster. The engine wasn't running. Something in me needed to know. "Hey, Ron," I said casually. "Mind if I take my 5-minute break?" He didn't even look up from the register. "Yeah, whatever." I slipped out the back door, pulling my jacket tight against the wind. The parking lot was nearly empty except for his car and a few buzzing streetlights. I lit a cigarette, even though I didn't smoke, and leaned against the wall. Through the windshield, I could see him. He unwrapped the bag, lifted one of the patties, red, dripping, raw, and pressed it against his face. He inhaled deeply, eyes closed, like he was breathing in something sacred. Then he began murmuring, low, rhythmic, almost prayer-like. My stomach knotted. Then his head snapped up. He turned and our eyes met through the car's side mirror. His expression twisted. Rage, disgust, something inhuman. He slammed his hands on the wheel. The car roared to life, tires screeching as he sped off, the headlights cutting through the dark. I stood there frozen, cigarette trembling between my fingers until it burned down to the filter. When I went back inside, Ron was counting the register. "He left?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah," I whispered. "Ron, what the hell was that? Who was he?" He looked up slowly, eyes tired. "Doesn't matter. He comes around once in a while. Always asks for the same thing." My mouth went dry. "You've done this before?" Ron's voice was flat. "You want to keep your job, you'll drop it." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that man's face, the way he smelled the meat like perfume. I quit a week later. Ron never called. 3 months later, I read in the morning call that a body had been found in a wooded area near Route 309, mauled so badly they thought it was an animal attack. The article said police were investigating ritualistic elements at the scene. They never caught who did it. Sometimes when I drive past that same Burger King, I still glance at the parking lot. There's a new manager now. New crew, but the smell, that mix of grease and burnt oil, always brings me back to that night. And I swear if I close my eyes, I can still see him, sitting in that car, whispering to the raw meat like it was alive. Story 4. I still remember the first night I smelled the mix of burnt grease and cheap deodorizer that would come to define that summer. My name's Ethan Cole, and back in 2017, I was 26 and broke in a town called Maple Hollow, just outside Toledo, Ohio. My old pickup had died 2 weeks before, rent was due, and my landlord was starting to remind me that late fees weren't optional. So when Burger King called me back after my interview, I didn't even hesitate. It wasn't glamorous. Hell, it wasn't even clean half the time. But it was a paycheck, and at that point in my life, survival was the only luxury I could afford. The first thing I noticed when I started there wasn't the heat or the smell, it was the rhythm. The thunk-thunk of the fryer basket, the hiss of the grill, the chorus of "order up" echoing through the small, fluorescent-lit kitchen. It was chaos with a pattern, and weirdly, I liked it. My manager, Dean Murphy, was a big guy with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow and a nervous habit of rolling a coin between his fingers when he talked. He'd been at that Burger King for nearly a decade, knew every corner of that place like it was his home. But even on my first day, I noticed the worry behind his eyes. It was after closing that night when he gathered the 6 of us around the prep table. The fryers hissed quietly behind us, cooling down, and the smell of onions hung heavy in the air. "All right, folks," Dean said, rubbing his neck. "Before we head out, I got to bring something up. We've had incidents lately, stuff going missing, frozen patties, buns, lettuce, sometimes full trays. Not money, not electronics, just food." We all exchanged confused looks. "Maybe rats?" someone joked. Dean gave a humorless laugh. "If it's rats, they're damn organized, and they know how to close doors behind them." That night, I walked home thinking he was exaggerating. But 2 days later, when I opened the walk-in freezer for my morning shift and found an entire box of frozen patties gone, just gone, I started to believe him. The night shift team was small. Me, Laura, a sharp-tongued single mom who'd been there nearly 10 years. Marcus, the line cook who thought everything was a joke. And Dean, who practically lived in that office. We worked the late shift together most nights. The job was simple: clean the grills, restock, prep for the morning crew. But after Dean's warning, every sound after closing started to feel louder. The ice machine's hum, the creak of the back door, the weird tapping that came from behind the soda machine sometimes. One night while scrubbing the grill, Laura leaned on her mop and said, "You know this ain't the first time food's gone missing." Back in 2013, the manager before Dean thought someone was breaking in. They put up cameras. Never caught a soul. "You're kidding," I said. She shook her head. They even blamed raccoons once. But no raccoon knows how to open a locked freezer. That night before we left, I made sure every door was locked. I checked twice, then again before stepping outside. The next morning, half a bag of lettuce and a full tray of patties were gone again. Dean lost it. He called maintenance, replaced every lock, and even had motion cameras installed. He started checking everyone's bags before we left. People were pissed, but no one wanted to get fired. But the thefts didn't stop. Always food, never cash, never supplies, just food. Finally, Dean snapped. "All right," he said one night after closing. "We're staying here tonight. All of us. Lights off. We're catching whoever the hell this is." Marcus whooped. "Like a stakeout?" "Hell yeah, I'll bring chips." We pulled chairs into the corner, killed the lights, and waited. The only sound was the distant buzz of the fridge and Laura quietly sipping her coffee. Midnight passed, then 1, then 2. Nothing. When the sun rose and the kitchen lights flickered back on, everything was in place. Nothing missing. Dean looked almost disappointed. Maybe we scared them off. He hired a night guard that week, a tall, stone-faced ex-Marine named Grant. Quiet guy, drank coffee like water, took his job seriously. For 3 nights, nothing happened. Then on the 4th morning, the freezer count was off again. Dean called Grant into his office. "You were here all night?" "Yes, sir." "Walk the perimeter every 30 minutes. No one came in or out." Dean pulled up the camera footage. Sure enough, Grant was there, walking his rounds. No one else appeared. No alarms, no movement, just emptiness. That's when Marcus muttered, "Maybe it's a ghost. Guess even spirits get hungry." We all laughed, except Laura. She didn't even crack a smile. "You joke, but this place has always felt off after midnight," she said softly. "Sometimes I swear I hear breathing." The following week, Laura decided to test a theory. "If it wants food, let's give it some." Dean frowned. "You're serious?" "Why not? Beats having the freezer raided every night." So she made a full meal, a Whopper, fries, and a vanilla shake, placed it on the counter before we locked up. The next morning, it was gone. Everything else was untouched. It became a joke at first, feeding the ghost. Every night, a meal was left out, and every morning it vanished. But something about it made my stomach twist. So one night, when Dean wasn't looking, I left my old phone behind the napkin holder and started recording. The next morning, I got to work early, went straight to the back, and hit play. At first, it was just static. Then, around 2:37 a.m., movement. From the far corner, behind the soda machine, a panel of the wall shifted, slowly, deliberately. A man crawled out. He was tall, but thin, bones jutting under filthy clothes, skin pale and stretched tight. His eyes were hollow, darting around the room like a terrified animal. He crawled to the counter, grabbed a burger with shaking hands, and devoured it like he hadn't eaten in weeks. Then, just as quietly, he slipped back behind the wall. I froze. That corner was solid concrete. There was no door, no crawl space, just the machine and a wall. When I showed the video to Dean, he went pale. "What the hell?" he whispered. That's not possible." That night, we stayed after closing again. Dean, me, and Laura. At around 2 a.m., it happened. The faint sound of scraping metal. Then the soda machine began to move. Dean grabbed my arm. Jesus Christ. A hidden panel of the wall slid open, and out came the same man, filthy, shaking, eyes wild. He went straight for the food Laura had left, ripped it apart, ate like an animal, then disappeared back inside. Dean's voice trembled. "We're calling the cops." When the police came, they tore down the wall behind the soda machine. What they found was worse than anything I'd imagined. Behind that section was a narrow opening leading into the neighboring building. an old abandoned print shop that had been closed for years. Someone had punched through the drywall from the other side and carved out a passage connecting the two spaces. Inside the print shop, the officers found makeshift beds, piles of trash, and empty food wrappers. Chains bolted to the floor. It wasn't just one man, there were several. A small group of people, malnourished, terrified, who'd been trapped inside that building by a trafficking ring using it as a holding site. The man we saw was one of them, a survivor who'd found a weak spot in the wall and crawled through at night to find food. They rescued 7 victims that night. Some were just kids. I didn't go back to work after that. Couldn't. Every time I tried to sleep, I saw that man's face, hollow, desperate, shaking with hunger. The Burger King closed 2 months later. Dean left town. Laura quit food service altogether. I work at a hardware store now in another part of Ohio. Life's quieter, but every time I pass a fast food joint at night and see the faint light in the kitchen window, I get this uneasy feeling, like there's someone still hiding behind the walls, waiting for the lights to go out. And sometimes I swear I still hear it, that faint scraping sound, like metal against drywall. Story 5. I don't know if I'll ever eat a burger again. Even now, years later, the smell of grilled meat makes my stomach twist. The hiss of oil on a skillet, the sound of a drive-through bell, it's enough to make me break into a sweat. But if I'm going to tell this story, I need to start from the beginning, before the night everything went wrong. In 2020, I was 24, broke, and desperate. I just lost my job at a car wash outside Tulsa, Oklahoma, when the pandemic shut everything down. My landlord gave me 1 week to pay rent or pack up. So when I saw a handwritten sign on a flickering neon window, "Help Wanted Night Shift, Burger Barn, Exit 14, I didn't think twice. Burger Barn wasn't a big chain like McDonald's or Burger King. It was one of those old greasy spoon franchises that still looked like they belonged in the 80s. Orange booths, cracked tiles, a faded cow mascot painted on the front wall. The manager, a man named Earl Denton, hired me on the spot. He was heavy-set, mid-50s, always smelled faintly of cigarettes and fryer oil. He didn't smile much, but he wasn't rude either. "Night shifts ain't for everyone," he'd said, signing my papers with a grease-stained pen. "You'll be alone most nights. Just you and the fryers. Think you can handle that?" I nodded. "Yeah, I've worked worse." He gave me a look like he didn't quite believe me. People always say that. By the second week, I'd memorized the rhythm of the place. 9 p.m., Earl clocked out. 9:30, final drive-through rush. 10, silence. After that, it was just me, the hum of the soda machine, and the low rumble of the walk-in freezer. I'd sweep floors, scrub the grills, restock the condiments, and watch the highway lights flicker through the front window. Every night, I'd call my sister Amy during cleanup. She'd tease me about smelling like fries and tell me about her nursing shifts in Kansas City. It kept me sane, talking to someone who didn't work there. The only other night shift worker was Lena, a quiet woman in her late 30s. She handled the prep station and had this calm, distant air about her, like her mind was always somewhere else. She never took off her necklace, a thin chain with a tiny silver charm that looked like a cow's skull. The first time I asked about it, she said, "Keeps bad spirits away." I laughed. She didn't. It started near the end of October. I came in for my shift and noticed it right away. Something off in the air. It wasn't the usual fry oil stench. This was sharper, heavier, like burnt hair mixed with something metallic. "Hey, Lena," I said, wrinkling my nose. "Something dead in the grease trap?" She didn't look up from chopping onions. "Don't joke about that." "I'm serious. Smells awful." "Don't open it," she said quickly. Her tone made me pause. "Why not?" "Just don't. Earl takes care of that." I shrugged it off, figuring maybe a rat had crawled in. But the smell lingered for days, and every night it got stronger. The first time I heard it, I thought it was the wind. I was scrubbing the fry baskets when a faint murmur drifted through the air vent above the prep line. It sounded like someone whispering right into the ductwork. Low, wet words I couldn't quite catch. I turned off the fryer fan. Silence. Then just as I went back to work, Shh, stop it. I froze. The words were so faint I thought I'd imagined them. Stop stirring the fat. I spun around, scanning the empty kitchen. Fryers, soda machine, heat lamps, all still. The only movement came from the flickering fluorescent bulb over the register. I laughed nervously to myself. Great, I'm losing it. When I told Lena the next day, she just stared at me for a long moment. You heard them, she said finally. Them? Her voice dropped. Don't listen. If you answer, they notice you. I waited for her to laugh, but she didn't. She just went back to chopping tomatoes, humming something under her breath that sounded almost like a prayer. A week later, Earl forgot to lock the office before leaving. I was restocking when I noticed the door ajar and stepped inside to drop off receipts. Behind the filing cabinet, half hidden under an old Burger Barn poster, was a metal trapdoor bolted into the tile. What the hell? I muttered, kneeling down. It had a latch sealed shut with a heavy padlock. When I asked Earl about it the next morning, his face went pale. Don't ever go near that, he said quietly. What's down there? Grease tank access, he said too fast. Old system, sealed off years ago, but that didn't make sense. Grease traps were always under the floor near the fryer, not under the office. He must have noticed my expression because he added, Corporate's got rules about old installations. You stay out, you stay safe. Then he smiled for the first time since I'd met him, but it wasn't a friendly smile. 2 nights later, the fryer overflowed. Hot oil hissed out, flooding the tile floor. As I grabbed towels, something caught my eye. Something swirling inside the oil like it was alive. The surface rippled, thick and dark, forming shapes that looked almost human before melting apart again. I stumbled back. The whisper came again, louder this time. Hungry. I dropped the towel and ran. Lena found me sitting outside behind the dumpster, shaking. You saw it, didn't you? She said softly. What was that? She sat down beside me, lighting a cigarette. This place is wrong. Always has been. What do you mean? They built Burger Barn on the old slaughterhouse site. My dad worked here before the fire in '86. Fire, she nodded. Grease explosion. Killed 5 men. They said it was an accident, but folks around here knew better. Said the fat had gone bad. Cursed. Wouldn't cool down. Wouldn't burn clean. That's insane, she looked at me. You smelled it, didn't you? That burnt hair smell? That's when it wakes up. November rolled in cold and gray. The smell never left. That night I came in for my shift and found Earl already there, pacing the kitchen. He looked exhausted, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. You been touching things you shouldn't? He asked suddenly. What? No. He stared at me hard. Don't lie, kid. That thing downstairs, it likes attention? I blinked. You mean the trapdoor? His jaw tightened. Yeah, that's where the grease goes. All of it. But not all of it's normal. He leaned close, voice low. We feed it. Keeps the lights on. I took a step back. You're joking. He didn't answer. That's when Lena walked in, face pale. It's leaking again. Earl grabbed a wrench and motioned for us to follow. We went into the office. The smell hit like a wall, acrid, rotting, almost sweet. He moved the filing cabinet, exposing the trapdoor. Thick black sludge was seeping out from the seams, bubbling as if it were breathing. Get towels, Earl barked. But I couldn't move. The bubbling thickened, rising like a slow wave. Faces formed, pale, twisted, screaming silently beneath the surface. Lena screamed. Earl dropped to his knees, pressing his palms against the metal. Not tonight, he muttered. Not again. The sludge pulsed, and a single voice hissed out of it, low and cold. We're still hungry. Earl's eyes rolled white. He screamed as the liquid shot upward, coating his face, his mouth, pouring down his throat. I yanked Lena back and slammed the office door shut. Something pounded from inside, shaking the walls. Then silence. We ran outside, gasping. My hands were slick with oil, my mind spinning. Call 911, I shouted. Lena was already on the phone, crying, when a low rumble came from the building. The neon cow sign flickered, sputtered, then burst into flames. Through the office window, I saw Earl's shape pressed against the glass, black and bloated, mouth open in a silent scream. The fire alarm shrieked and the night lit up orange. We stumbled to the road, watching the flames devour the building. When the fire trucks came, we told them about the grease explosion, about the leak. They believed it, at first. They never found Earl's body. The fire chief said the heat must have been intense enough to disintegrate it. But when they pumped the basement out, they said the grease trap was empty, bone dry. Lena quit town the next day. I tried to move on. Got a job at a gas station in Dallas. But every once in a while, I'd get this smell on my hands. Burnt fat and iron, even after washing. I thought it was my imagination. Until last month. I was driving through Oklahoma again, heading home after visiting Amy. Somewhere outside Elk City, I saw a new billboard. Coming soon, Burger Barn Express. Grand reopening under new management. Same logo, same cow mascot. And under the neon lights, I could swear I saw a figure. Tall, dark, standing by the construction fence, watching me as I passed. That night at my motel, I dreamed of Earl's voice whispering through a vent. "We're still hungry, kid." When I woke up, my hands were slick with something that smelled like grease. Story 6, I never thought a job at a fast food place would nearly cost me my life. Back then, I was just 17, a high school senior in a small Ohio town called Marin Falls, population barely over 3,500. One of those places with a single stoplight, one grocery store, and a main street that shut down after 8 p.m. Summers there were slow, quiet, and unbearably humid. The kind of town where even boredom had a routine. My parents weren't well off. Dad drove trucks for a local distributor. Mom worked nights at the nursing home off Route 29. When I told them I'd gotten hired at the Burger King on the edge of town, they were proud. Not because it was glamorous, but because it meant I was finally contributing. I still remember my first shift. The uniform felt stiff. The air inside smelled like a mix of fryer oil and cleaning solution, and the hum of the soda fountain filled every moment of silence. The manager, Rick, a tired man in his mid-30s, with thinning hair and eyes that always looked half-closed, handed me a name tag that said Dylan. "Don't lose it," he said. "You're not officially one of us without that plastic badge." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Rick wasn't a bad guy, just overworked. He'd been running that Burger King for almost 10 years, and you could tell the place had worn him down. He was the kind of man who lived off nicotine gum and black coffee. There were 5 of us working that summer. Me, Lacey, a college sophomore home for break. Tommy, the jokester, always trying to charm customers. Annika, quiet, efficient, and surprisingly good at handling drunks. And Rick, our reluctant captain. It was ordinary. Long hours, sore feet, the endless smell of grease that stuck to my skin no matter how hard I scrubbed after work. But that summer changed everything, and it started the week Amber arrived. Amber was new in town. Her mom had taken a nursing job at Marin Falls General Hospital. She came in one Tuesday morning to apply, wearing ripped jeans, a loose gray hoodie, and a shy but easy smile. Rick hired her on the spot. When she showed up for her first evening shift, I was the one told to train her. "You Dylan?" she asked, walking up behind the counter, tying her hair up into a loose bun. "That's me." "You must be the new recruit. If by recruit you mean victim of minimum wage, then yeah," she said with a grin. We got along fast. She picked up things quickly. How to load fries, manage the register, clean the milkshake machine without making it explode. She had that mix of humor and calm that made the chaos of fast food seem almost bearable. And for a while, things were fine, routine, predictable, until that one Friday night. The evening started normal. Slow trickle of customers, a few teenagers hanging in the parking lot blasting music. The usual smell of burnt oil and ketchup lingering in the air. Rick came out from the back carrying something weird. A Burger King mascot costume. It was off. The robe was dusty, the crown had a crack running through it, and the plastic mask had this fixed grin that looked a little too wide. "Corporate sent this crap," Rick muttered. "They want someone outside to wave at cars, make us look inviting." Like people really want to eat burgers because a fake king waves at them. Tommy groaned. No chance in hell, man. That thing smells like feet, Rick smirked. Relax. I'll do it. You kids hold down the fort. Amber snorted. Gonna rule your kingdom, huh? Something like that, he said, slipping the plastic head on. His voice echoed inside the mask, distorted. Long live the king! We laughed as he stepped outside. Under the flickering streetlight, the Burger King stood proudly, waving lazily at cars passing by. It was stupid, funny even, until around 9:15. We were almost done for the night. I was wiping down the counters, Amber was mopping near the door, and Tommy was restocking sauces. The store was quiet, just the buzz of the lights and the soft hum of the fryer. Amber looked up suddenly. Is Rick still out there? I glanced out the window. The Burger King mascot was still there, standing near the curb, but not waving anymore, just standing still, facing the road. Guess so, I said. He's probably just messing around. She squinted. Why isn't he moving? It was true, he was completely still. No wind, no traffic, no reason to be standing like that. I stepped closer to the glass. Rick? I called out through the door. No answer. Amber frowned. That's seriously creeping me out. Tommy came over. Yo, King, you good? The figure didn't move, didn't even flinch. Amber laughed nervously. Okay, if this is a prank, it's working. Rick didn't answer. Then the figure slowly turned its head toward us. Just the head. One slow, deliberate movement, and waved. Not the goofy wave Rick always did, but a stiff, jerky one. Amber stepped back. That's not Rick. I unlocked the door and stepped outside. Rick? Come on, man. Enough with the creepy crap. No response. Just the soft scrape of shoes shifting on concrete. Then without a word, the figure pointed, not at me, but at the back of the building, and tilted its head again. My stomach twisted. Rick? The man in the costume didn't answer. He just turned and walked. Slow, dragging steps around the corner toward the dumpsters. Amber called out from behind me. Dylan, get inside. I did. Locked the door. You saw that, right? I said, breathless. That wasn't him. Could be Tommy screwing around. Tommy's right here, she whispered. Tommy lifted his hands. Yeah, man. I didn't move. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Rick didn't come back. We tried his phone, straight to voicemail. Amber was pacing. Maybe something happened. Maybe he... Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the glass door. We all froze. The figure was back, standing at the entrance, the Burger King mask gleaming under the fluorescent light. But this time the robe was torn, and his hands were smeared in something dark. Rick, Tommy whispered. The figure tilted its head, then raised a single finger to its plastic lips. Shh. The voice was deep, not Rick's, not anyone's I recognized. Amber's voice trembled. Dylan, lock the kitchen door. Now before I could move, the figure slammed against the glass. The whole door rattled. Tommy yelled, What the hell? The lock held, but only barely. The pounding got louder, heavier. We ran to the back office, slammed the metal door shut. Amber grabbed the phone. Deadline. My phone? No signal. Outside we heard footsteps. Slow, then scraping, like metal dragging on tile. Amber whispered, tears in her eyes. What if he gets in? I didn't answer. Then silence. For almost a full minute, nothing, until the bang. He was kicking the office door, over and over. Open up, the voice snarled. You can't hide. I grabbed the broom handle from the corner. Amber, if he gets in, I'm not leaving you. You have to. Another bang, louder, then it stopped. We held our breath. Silence again. And then, the sound of running water. Somewhere out front, the soda machine. He was still in the building. I cracked the office door open just enough to peek. The dining area was empty, but the front door was wide open, letting in the cold night air. Come on, I whispered. We're leaving. We moved quickly, past the counter, past the tables, almost to the exit. When the sound came, a shuffle, from behind the soda machine. He lunged. The king's mask glinted under the light, and I saw the knife. I shoved Amber back, swung the broom as hard as I could. It cracked against the mask. Plastic splintered. The headpiece fell, revealing his face underneath. It wasn't Rick. It was Kyle, a former employee Rick had fired 3 weeks ago for stealing cash from the register. His eyes were wild, his teeth bloody. "You all laughed at me," he hissed. "You ruined me." I swung again, hitting his arm. He stumbled, grabbed my leg, yanking me down. Amber screamed, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and slammed it into his shoulder. Once, twice. He went down hard. We ran, out the back door, down the alley, barefoot, shaking until we reached the Marin Falls police station 2 blocks away. They found Kyle unconscious in the kitchen, knife still in hand. He'd been living in the old shed behind the restaurant for days, strung out, paranoid, waiting for his chance to make them pay. Rick had gone home hours earlier, sick, never even knew his costume was stolen. The store shut down for weeks after that. New locks, new cameras, new policies. Amber quit the day it reopened. I stayed a little longer, trying to make sense of it all, but every time I closed alone, I'd see that reflection, that plastic grin in the window, just out of focus. Now, years later, I can't even drive past a Burger King without my pulse spiking. Because no matter how many times I tell myself it's over, I still hear that voice. You should have locked the door. Story 7. I was 21 when it all went down, when the smell of grease and charred beef stopped meaning work and started meaning terror. Back then, I was living in a small town in southern Missouri called Clearfield. You've probably never heard of it. It's one of those blink and you miss it places with 1 gas station, 2 stoplights, and a Burger King right off Highway 19. That Burger King was my first real job after dropping out of college. Life wasn't exactly going great at the time. My old Honda Civic had died 3 weeks earlier. I was behind on rent, and my roommate had just moved out without warning, taking half the furniture with him. I was desperate for cash, so when the manager at Burger King called me for a night shift opening, I said yes before he could even finish the sentence. The first few weeks were fine. Not great, not terrible. I got used to the rhythm, the hiss of the fryer, the buzz of the drive-through speaker, the faint scent of burnt oil that clung to my uniform no matter how many times I washed it. The crew was small. There was Eddie, the shift lead, a 28-year-old guy with a short temper, but a good heart once you got past the sarcasm. Then there was Miles, the grill cook, who was a year older than me. Tall, thin, with a lopsided grin and a permanent smudge of ketchup on his shirt. He had this laid-back energy that made the long nights bearable. Always humming, always telling dumb jokes. And then there was Nina. She worked the register most nights. 19, always chewing bubble gum, always talking about how she was going to move to Nashville one day and become a singer. She had this brightness to her that made everyone around her feel lighter, except Miles lately. The first time I noticed something was off with him was around mid-July. He came in late one night, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking. I asked if he was okay. Didn't sleep much, he said, lighting a cigarette out back during break. Had a fight with Tessa again? Tessa was his girlfriend. They'd been together a couple of years, but things had gone south lately. I'd seen them together once. She was gorgeous, older, worked as a stylist at a salon downtown called Velvet Scissors. Miles talked about her like she hung the moon, but lately his stories had gone from sweet to bitter. She's been seeing someone else, he muttered one night. Some guy she met at that salon. Drove a black BMW, said he was in real estate or some crap. You believe that? She says she still loves me, but she's wearing his necklace. I didn't know what to say, so I just told him to hang in there. But I could see the cracks starting to show. He stopped humming. He stopped eating on breaks. He'd stand out back by the dumpster, staring toward the road like he was waiting for someone. 2 weeks later, Eddie mentioned that Miles had been calling in sick. Then Nina didn't show up for her shift one night. She was never late. I tried calling her cell, straight to voicemail. Eddie was pacing behind the counter. Kid probably ran off with that boyfriend she was talking about, he said, half joking, but his eyes said otherwise. Miles came in the next night, pale and jumpy. When I asked if he'd heard from Nina, he said too quickly, Nah, she quit. Told me last week that didn't sit right. Nina wouldn't have just quit. She'd been saving up to buy a car, and she always told me if she planned to take a day off. Later that night, I caught Miles staring out the back window again, the one that looked toward the alley behind the restaurant, the one that ended at a storm drain. His expression was blank, almost hypnotized. "You good, man?" I asked. He blinked, startled. "Yeah, just thinking about what?" He gave a slow smile. How people disappear so easily. I laughed it off, but something about the way he said it made the air feel heavy. A few days later, the news hit. Human remains discovered near a drainage tunnel behind the Clearfield Burger King. That was our store. The article didn't name the victim at first, but the description, female, early 20s, made my stomach twist. Eddie called an emergency staff meeting. The cops had come by to ask questions. Everyone was shaken. Miles didn't show up that night. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. "Need to talk. Come to my place. Please." I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me I couldn't. Miles lived in a small duplex a few blocks from the restaurant. When I got there, his truck was out front, the headlights off. The porch light flickered. The door was cracked open. "Mile?" I called. No answer. The smell hit me first, raw meat and bleach. My stomach flipped. The TV was on, static hissing through the speakers. Then I saw something on the floor, one of Nina's silver hoop earrings. I recognized it. She used to joke about how they were her good luck pair. My chest tightened. "Miles," I said again, voice shaking. "Where are you, man?" From the kitchen came a sound. Something metallic clattering. He stepped out, eyes hollow, face streaked with sweat. His apron, still his Burger King one, was spattered dark red. "You shouldn't have come here," he said softly. "What did you do?" "She laughed at me," he whispered. "Tessa, then Nina." They all laughed. "You know what that does to a man?" I backed toward the door. "Miles, just put the knife down, okay? We can talk." He tilted his head. "Talk?" That's all I ever did. Nobody listened. He took a step closer. The knife glinted under the TV's static glow. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I grabbed the nearest thing, a metal chair, and swung when he lunged. The blade grazed my arm. Pain shot up my side. I ran for the hallway, slammed a door, and stumbled into a bedroom. That's when I saw her. Tessa, on the bed, pale, still. Her hand hung off the edge. Her nails painted the same shade of coral she always wore. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. From behind the door came a voice, calm, almost tender. "She said she'd leave me. Said she could do better." He pushed the door open. The hinges creaked. I froze. There was nowhere to go. He stepped closer to the bed, brushing a strand of hair from Tessa's face. "She's perfect now," he murmured. "Doesn't talk back. Doesn't lie." When his back turned, I saw the bat leaning against the nightstand. My body moved before my brain did. "Miles!" I shouted. He turned, and I swung. The bat cracked against his shoulder. He stumbled, dropping the knife. I hit him again, once, twice, until he stopped moving. The silence afterward was unbearable. The TV kept buzzing in the other room. Somewhere, a faucet dripped. I ran outside, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The words tumbled out of me. "He killed them. He killed them." When the police arrived, I sat on the curb, covered in blood. His or mine, I didn't know. They found Tessa's body in the bedroom. They found Nina's bracelet in the freezer. The next morning, the whole town knew. Burger King employee arrested for double homicide. Miles confessed everything. He'd followed Tessa one night after their breakup, waited outside her salon, and kidnapped her. When Nina stopped by his place later, just to borrow a phone charger, according to her texts, she saw something she shouldn't have. He panicked. Killed her too. They said he kept both bodies for days, talking to them like they were still alive. He pled guilty within a week. No trial, just a lifetime behind bars. I quit Burger King the next day, packed my things and left Clearfield. It's been 5 years, but every time I drive past a Burger King sign, my stomach knots up. Sometimes I swear I can hear that old hum of the fryer and Miles's voice singing off key. And sometimes, when I can't sleep, I think about that night, about the static on the TV, about the way he said, "You shouldn't have come here." He was right, because no matter how much time passes, part of me never left that kitchen. The hiss of the grill, the flicker of fluorescent light, the sound of something cooking long after everyone's gone home. Story 8, I was 23 when I became the youngest manager in the history of the Burger Barn on Highway 14, just outside of Dayton, Ohio. Not bad for a kid who started flipping patties at 16 for gas money. My name's Evan Price, and if you'd told me that my promotion would end with flashing blue lights and cold steel around my wrists, I'd have laughed. But here I am, telling you this from a place where laughter doesn't come easy anymore. When I first got that manager title, I was proud. My mom, a nurse who worked double shifts just to keep us afloat, cried when I told her. "You did it, baby," she said, hugging me so tight I could feel her heart pounding. "You worked for it. Never let anyone take that from you." For a while, I believed her. The store wasn't fancy, just another off-ramp burger barn with cracked tile floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and that constant smell of burnt oil no mop could ever erase. But it was mine to run, my crew, my rules. Or so I thought. Then there was Linda Carter. Linda had been at that location since before I was even in high school. She knew every piece of equipment better than the maintenance guys did. Everyone called her Mama Linda, except me. She hated me from day one. "Look at the boss, man," she said my first shift as manager, smirking while dumping fries into the oil. "Kid thinks a polo shirt makes him important." "Just trying to do my job, Linda," I said, forcing a smile. "Sure," she said, eyes never leaving the fryer. "Just remember who taught you half of what you know." I tried to keep it professional, but she didn't make it easy. She'd forget to clean stations, lose timesheets, whisper to the others that I was only promoted because I kissed corporate's ass. I ignored it for a while, but resentment festers fast in a kitchen full of grease and stress. It was a Tuesday night in late September. A dead night. The dinner rush had ended, and all that was left was the sound of the fryer bubbling and the hum of the soda machine. Only 3 of us were on shift, me, Linda, and Cody, a quiet 19-year-old who'd started a few months ago. He mostly kept to himself, head down, headphones in when he could get away with it. Around 9:45, I was in the office counting receipts when Cody knocked on the doorframe. "Hey, boss," he said, pushing his blonde hair back. "Couple just came in. You want me to lock up after them?" "Yeah," I said, not looking up. "Take their order. We'll close the lobby after that." When I walked out, Linda was mopping near the counter. A middle-aged couple stood at the register, a man in a plaid jacket, a woman in a gray hoodie. They looked tired, maybe from a long drive. Before I could even say hi, Linda barked, "Lobby's closing. You'll need to go through drive-thru." The man frowned. "It's not even 10 yet. You close at 10:30. "Yeah, well," Linda said flatly, "I'm ready to go home." "Linda," I said sharply, "that's enough." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever." I turned back to the couple, forcing a smile. "I'm sorry about that." "You're fine to order." The man nodded. "Thanks. Long day on the road." They ordered 6 triple barn burgers, 6 fries, and 6 milkshakes. Weird, sure, but not unheard of. I'd seen people stock up for their whole family before. "Linda, you're on grill," I said. She scoffed. "Figures." Cody handled the register while I helped on assembly. We bagged everything, sealed it, handed it off. The couple thanked us and left. The bell over the door jingled as it closed behind them. That sound, I still hear it sometimes. I woke up to my phone ringing nonstop. It was Renee, my district manager. "Evan, I need you to come to the store right now," she said. Her voice was tight, trembling. When I pulled into the lot, my stomach dropped. Police cruisers everywhere. Yellow tape across the entrance. Renee met me outside. Her face was pale. "Those customers from last night," she said quietly. "They were found dead. Car crash on I-70. But they didn't die from the crash." "What are you talking about?" "The coroner found traces of rat poison in their stomachs." From their food, I froze. My throat went dry. "Renee, I made that order myself." "I know," she said. "That's why you need to talk to the detectives." They questioned all 3 of us. "Who touched the food? Who handled the packaging? Did anyone seem off? I told them the truth. Linda grilled, I assembled, Cody bagged and served. Simple as that. They questioned Linda next. She came out of the room red-faced, furious. "That little bastard's trying to blame me," she shouted, pointing at me. "I'm not blaming anyone," I said. Cody just stood there, head down, silent. With no hard proof, they had to let us go. But the store shut down for a week. New cameras, new safety rules. Everyone walked on eggshells. A few nights later, I decided to make peace. Linda and I had been cold since the investigation. I thought maybe if I apologized, we could move on. I made her a bacon deluxe burger and a chocolate shake. Her usual. "Peace offering," I said, setting it down in front of her during her break. She eyed it suspiciously. "What's the catch?" "No catch. I shouldn't have been so harsh before she took a bite. Guess you're not such a bad boss after all." Then she coughed. Once. Twice. Her eyes widened. She gasped, clutching her throat. The burger fell to the floor. "Linda!" I shouted, rushing to her. She collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Chaos erupted. A teenager screamed near the counter. A woman started vomiting violently. By the time paramedics arrived, 4 people were dead, including Linda, all from the same meal I prepared. The police didn't hesitate this time. They cuffed me right there, in front of everyone. "Rat poison again," one officer said. "Same batch as before." I tried to explain, but nobody listened. They said everything pointed to me, the timing, the preparation, even the store's inventory logs. I spent the next 8 days in county jail. Cold cell, bad food, and the sound of someone crying every night down the hall. Then one morning, a guard said I had a visitor. It was Cody. He sat across from me behind the glass, that same quiet expression on his face. But his eyes, there was something wrong in them. "You okay, boss?" he asked, voice calm, almost amused. "Why are you here?" I asked. "Just wanted to see how you were holding up." "I didn't do this," I said. "You know that." "Oh, I know," he said, smirking. "You didn't. Then who?" He leaned closer. "Me." I froze. "I slipped it in while Linda went for more pickles," he said softly. "You were too busy playing manager to notice." "Cody." "Why?" he shrugged. "I wanted to see what it felt like. To have control, to make people stop existing. It's a powerful, you know?" My stomach turned. "You killed them." "All of them," he smiled. "And the best part? You took the fall. You looked so broken on the news. Made it even better. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. But what Cody didn't know was that every call in that room was recorded. The next day, detectives pulled the audio. 2 days later, he was arrested. He confessed to everything, no remorse. Said he'd been curious. They released me 2 weeks later. No apology, no compensation. Just a signature and a plastic bag with my wallet and keys. The store never reopened. Renee transferred to another district. Linda's family moved away. And me? I can't even smell grilled beef without my stomach twisting. I still wake up some nights drenched in sweat, hearing that bell over the door and seeing Linda's face as she collapsed. They call it survivor's guilt. I call it punishment, because even though Cody's the one behind bars, I was the one who handed her that burger.